All right. Wow. Breaking news, guys. Breaking news. This is wild. So we are live here with a major political decapitation inside the Trump administration. Greetings, everybody. Jump in the chat. Hit the like button. Come in, come in. This is breaking news. President Donald Trump has just fired Kristi Noem as head of Homeland Security, one of the most powerful and controversial posts in the entire administration. The person in charge of border policy, ICE, cyber, terrorism response, and domestic security is suddenly out of a job, and the official explanations are already clashing with the leaks. So was this about policy? Was this about loyalty, the war, the border, or 2026 politics, or all of the above? So today we're going to break down what this firing tells us about Trump's inner circle, what it means for Homeland Security on the ground, and who might be stepping into the role. I think they already got that going. I think we're going to hear about that. This shapes everything from immigration raids, terror alerts. Hit subscribe, smash the like so this stream gets pushed out while we're live. And tell me in the chat, do you think Kristi Noem deserved to be fired, or is she the last scapegoat for the Trump world chaos that we see today? Because it is getting crazy over there at the White House. Let's have a listen.
Citizens Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Just moments ago, the president saying he's naming Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin to become the next Secretary of Homeland Security. Let's get straight to our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce. Mary, what do we know?
Well, Kira, the president just announced in a social media post that Markwayne Mullin is going to become the new Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security as of the end of this month. And the president, who, as you note, we know had grown increasingly frustrated with Secretary Noem this following several days of her testimony up on the Hill, the president posting the current secretary, Kristi Noem, who has served us well and has had numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border, will be moving to be special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere. It also comes, of course, as you note, that she received a lot of backlash after her response to the killings of two American citizens, Renee Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. She, of course, was very quick to come out and label them domestic terrorists. She falsely said that Preddy was brandishing a gun. It created quite a controversy for the administration. Then, of course, the president moved in Tom Homan, his border czar, to take over the situation in Minneapolis. But Kira, the big picture here, it is important to remember that this is now the first major firing that we have seen in the president's second term. To fire Kristi Noem, move her away from being the DHS secretary to this new post at the end of this month. Unlike in his first term, where there was quite a bit of turnover in the cabinet, she is now the first cabinet secretary to be let go by President Trump.
Wow. Let's bring in our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas. Pierre, as we get this news now, let's just talk about how DHS changed under Kristi Noem's leadership. And it didn't take long for her to receive a lot of heat from critics once she did take that position.
Indeed, Kira. And there was a key moment this week at that Senate hearing. This over $200 million ad campaign came up, and Senator Kennedy, a Republican, was pressing her on why was the funding as high as it was. He expressed deep concern that it was too much money, and he asked the secretary about it, and she claimed that the president was engaged in this. Now, we just saw from our own reporting from Rachel Scott and others that the president is now claiming that that is not true. And again, this ad campaign stars Kristi Noem, and basically the message is to undocumented people leave now or be deported. And again, $200 million, and you could see these ads during football games, during the NFL, college football playoffs, the NBA, all types of major ad buys for this particular campaign, and that appears to have played a key role. To your first question, the bottom line is under Kristi Noem, there were some positives for the administration in terms of the border being shut down, but the way that the internal campaign to remove people from this country was executed is apparently played a big role in this as well. As Mary said, Tom Homan taking over after the situation in Minneapolis spiraled out of control.
And let's take it straight now to senior political correspondent Rachel Scott. I know you're en route to the Hill. You've been talking to your sources, Rachel. What's the word from lawmakers after Pierre just mentioned, of course, the testimony where apparently the president was not happy with how the now former secretary performed during testimony?
Yeah, well, Kira, I'm told by multiple sources that President Trump was on the phone calling Republicans, calling allies, asking whether or not he should fire Secretary Kristi Noem. He was pointing out that he was clearly unhappy with that answer that she gave Senator Kennedy during these heated briefings and hearings on Capitol Hill just yesterday. I'm also told that there has been a lot of frustration with how Noem has handled several instances, not just this particular one on the Hill testifying before Congress, but also just a few days ago, it was her decision, along with one of her top advisors, Corey Lewandowski, to ultimately pause and put a hold on TSA PreCheck due to the government shutdown. I'm told by multiple sources that then White House officials had to intervene then to correct that. So this is coming after a lot of frustration, not only from President Trump, but also top members of his administration expressing concern about some of her actions, and ultimately the president making this decision today to now get Kristi Noem out and completely replace her, Kira.
And this actually protects her from Congress.
Rachel, let's talk more
Congress,
about the senator from Oklahoma, Markwayne Mullin, who now will replace former Secretary Kristi Noem there overseeing DHS. What more do we know about him, and your thoughts on why you think the president made this choice?
In these final hours leading up to this decision, Kira, I'm told that I was told that President Trump was working the phone, speaking to Republicans on Capitol Hill, and this is something that the president does, right? He likes to get on the phone with Republicans and allies, and he asks them questions. So one of the things he was asking them is who exactly do they think should serve in this role? Clearly, the president is concerned about one thing, a confirmation battle ahead. Senator Markwayne Mullin is respected up on Capitol Hill by Republican allies. He's someone that many Republicans, including top administration officials, believe could ultimately get through a Senate confirmation battle. Obviously, Republicans do have majority in the Senate right now. On top of that, Senator Mullin is also a firebrand. He is known for having some of these explosive exchanges, even on hearings on Capitol Hill. He is a fierce defender of the president as well. And top administration officials do believe he's someone that will be able to work more closely with the administration and more in line with the administration as compared to some of these recent incidents with Secretary Noem.
Rachel, thank you. I want to bring in our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katersky now. Aaron, you've been covering the Department of Homeland Security.
We're going to jump over to this story right here. More breaking news, guys.
Good news. This comes a day after a difficult couple of days on Capitol Hill in both the House and the Senate for Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary. She is being
giving
replaced.
You both sides of the
Senator
news.
Markwayne Mullin is now going to take over her job. The president making the announcement on Truth Social just a short time ago. He writes, quote, "I am pleased to announce that the highly respected United States Senator from the great state of Oklahoma, Markwayne Mullin, will become the United States Secretary of Homeland Security effective March 31st of this year. The current Secretary, Kristi Noem, who has served us well and has had numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border, will be moving to be special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, which is a new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere that they're announcing on Saturday.
We're almost at 30,000 subscribers, so hit that subscribe
President says, I thank Kristi for her service at Homeland. So this comes amid reports that the president was none too pleased about the advertising campaign money that came to light during these hearings, Sandra. And so just in the last 24 hours, we've heard a lot of rumors that Markwayne Mullin may be tapped for DHS, and now it appears the president has made that decision, and that's going to happen at the end of the month.
Yeah, there was some.
Let me see you put a 1 in the chat if you support the firing of Kristi Noem. If you think this was a good thing, press 1. If you think she shouldn't have been fired, press 2. So yes for firing, press 1. No, press 2. Let me see what you guys think.
Reporting leading up to this that this could be the case. No confirmation had been made by the president himself until now, but there was reports of frustration inside the White House over some of the actions taken on the part of Kristi Noem. Looking at the announcement, though, and looking at the touting President Trump does of Markwayne Mullin record 10 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, 3 in the Senate. The president says he's done a tremendous job with the people of Oklahoma. As the president pointed out, somewhere he did very well. So obviously this is breaking news. Just now, President Trump making the formal announcement that that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem will be replaced, John.
Will, and also the president taking note of Markwayne Mullen's status as a former undefeated professional MMA fighter, also the only Native American in the Senate. Let's bring in Jackie Heinrich. She's at the White House. The timing of this, I guess, was a little bit of a surprise. We didn't expect it quite this soon, but it was certainly expected.
Well, you know, John, this president has been reluctant to shuffle his staff since really early in his second term when
Savages
he moved
in the chat.
National Security Advisor Mike Waltz over to Ambassador of the UN. Since then, he's kept all of his folks sort of in position, weathered whatever criticism comes their way. And Kristi Noem, the DHS Secretary, has faced a turbulent period in the last few weeks amid the fallout, the response to the ICE deportation campaign in Minnesota, some public statements that she made. And then most recently this week, her testimony on Capitol Hill, there were reports that her defense of her campaign, her ad campaign, $200 million in spending that prominently featured her sometimes on horseback, claiming that the president, according to these reports, had approved of that, reportedly upset him. He wasn't happy about giving the impression that he had sort of authorized that amid this broader administration effort to root out fraud. So she's being moved now into another role. The Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas, a new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere that they're announcing on Saturday.
Oh, that's
the president's been, defensive of Kristi Noem for the last several weeks as she's faced questions about her ability to carry out her duties. He regularly pointed to the success closing the southern border, the fact that there have been no illegal immigrants caught and released into the interior of the U.S. for several months, the fact that overdoses and murders are at historic lows, and pointed to those successes to sort of boost her up and defend keeping her in place. But it seems like that testimony on Capitol Hill might have been a turning point. There were also some reports that FEMA funding that was stalled suddenly came through after questioning. And so this is a rapid development, of course, and something we didn't expect until potentially after the midterms. This is a strange time for the president to make that major of a shakeup. But there was, sort of the writing on the wall after he elevated Tom Homan, his border czar, to take a more prominent role in the ICE deportation campaign. It's well reported that there's been a long-standing rift between Homan and Noem about how this should be handled, sort of the firmer approach versus the softer touch that Homan went in and sort of cleaned up amid all of that public scrutiny over what transpired in Minnesota. Of course, the policy still stands. The president's policy and the goal of deporting any illegal immigrant in the country and certainly prioritizing those who are guilty of crimes does still stand. But the president faced questioning about how much he wanted to defend her. And it seems in the past few weeks that that patience might have worn out.
Yeah, a little bit more about his replacement. Seems to be how when President Trump made the announcement, the focus seemed to be on his record, Jackie. This is somebody, obviously, he's putting his full support behind in making this announcement.
That's right. And Markwayne Mullen is very well liked. He does a lot of TV. He's articulate and, certainly has a lot of relevant experience. Haven't had a chance to read through everything in this very long truth, darted up to the camera as soon as we saw it come out, or make any calls to any other officials to find out more of what has gone on, sort of the background thinking that we might not know from all of the reports that have surfaced. You tend to read that kind of thing, especially when, in newsletters, with a little bit of a grain of salt and wonder, sure, you might ask a question of an official or two, but you don't necessarily take it as, Bible verse. So we certainly need to find out what the president's thinking was, and if it was that testimony in Capitol Hill that changed his mind, if Markwayne Mullen, some quality of his made him better positioned for a new
policy? Let me
policy?
take you over to some of the testimony that happened. This is Senator Kennedy. I like this guy. Let's have a listen.
Approved ahead of time, you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it correctly.
Did the president know you were going to do this?
Yes.
He did?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I personally to me, it puts the president in a terribly awkward spot.
That exchange between Senator John Kennedy and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem on Tuesday reportedly angering President Trump and making him question whether he should fire Noem. Here to break down all of this is the Hill's White House columnist Niall Stanage. Now, this reporting coming from Punchbowl News, which says the president is upset that Noem appeared to say he had a personal say in the ad's approval. The DHS secretary has dealt with plenty of firestorms. Why is this one seemingly one step too far for President Trump?
Well, it would appear to be because it goes directly toward him and his involvement in these ads, which this was an ad campaign that reportedly cost, I believe, more than $200 million. And there are questions around whether that process for bidding to get those ads was as open as it should have been, or, the supposition is that whether the ads were directed to companies that had some kind of pre-existing relationship. I don't think President Trump wants to be in the middle of all that. And so even though Secretary Noem has been involved in much more substantive controversial topics, this one seems to be getting some traction in the White House.
All this, of course, is coming as DHS is nearing almost 3 weeks of being shut down. How could that play into the president's decision of whether or not to fire Noem?
So there's certainly speculation on the Republican side that they don't want to hand Democrats a weapon while the funding or lack of funding for the Department of Homeland Security is part of this political debate we're seeing going on in the building behind me on Capitol Hill. So that could play some role in all of this. But again, there are so many different components and cross currents in this, Judy. All of them are important.
A lot of moving parts here. Some more breaking news. I want to give you both sides.
Security. We have a team of reporters on this. Let's start with Kristen Holmes at the White House. Kristen, it was, like 10 minutes ago that you were reporting that her job was in jeopardy, and now it's official.
This is breaking news. This just happened.
President Trump has announced that he has fired the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. This is the first cabinet position that he has fired during his second term. Of course, the only other high-profile ouster we've had like this was when Mike Waltz served as the head of the National Security Council. He was the National Security Advisor. So President Trump just posted this on Truth Social. He said, "I am pleased to announce that the highly respected United States Senator from the great state of Oklahoma, Mark Wayne Mullen, will become the United States Secretary of Homeland Security effective March 31st, 2026. And Boris, just so you know, this is one of the names that we had heard he was floating in these conversations he was having with lawmakers on Capitol Hill. The current Secretary, Kristi Noem, who has served us well and has had numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border, will be moving to be special envoy for the Shield of the Americas, our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere. We are announcing on Saturday in Doral, Florida. I thank Kristi for her service at Homeland. Again, this is a huge deal, Boris. This is the first time he is firing a cabinet member. He has been incredibly reluctant this term to fire, to shuffle any of his staff, any of his officials, because of the perception of his first term when he was in office, that it was a revolving door. However, as we reported, we were told that the catalyst for this was essentially this appearance that she made, this hearing in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, in which she claimed President Trump had signed off on a $200 million ad campaign that featured her asking illegal immigrants to self-deport. President Trump has now said publicly he didn't do that. And of course, all of this is amid the fallout that we saw from Minnesota, from Minneapolis. And there have been pushback on the Hill and from many of President Trump's allies that Kristi Noem was not the right person for the job. But many of them had been careful to walk a very thin line, not getting too far out there. But clearly, we are told now that this hearing put Trump over the edge in terms of his anger factor. Now he has fired Noem, replacing her, with this Oklahoma senator.
All right, Kristen, this is huge news as we are getting this, that Trump is replacing Kristi Noem as DHS secretary and moving her to a special envoy position, which is certainly a demotion and something that is meant to give her a little cover as she is getting ousted here. Kristen, thank you so much. If you could stand by for us there at the White House. Let's go to Priscilla Alvarez, who has been tracking this for us. What are you learning?
Well, I have been hearing from Homeland Security officials who are stunned. Of course, they had been talking amongst themselves over the last several weeks and months, anticipating that the secretary may be out soon, given a series of missteps that they perceived she had done over the last several weeks. And one of those in particular, or many of those in particular, are stemmed in what happened in Minneapolis. Recall, of course, that surge of federal agents for that immigration enforcement operation where 2 U.S. citizens were fatally shot by federal agents. And it was the secretary who came out in that immediate aftermath calling them domestic terrorists, something that she was grilled on during the congressional hearings this week, but that also shocked Homeland Security officials that she would so quickly draw conclusions over such incidents. And recall, too, that President Trump, in the aftermath of those shootings, had dispatched White House border czar Tom Homan to try to resolve the issues on the ground. It was the most high-profile rebuke over the course of the last year of the secretary and the way that she was managing the department and the immigration enforcement mission. Now, of course, the White House said at the time that she was in lockstep with Tom Homan, but it was also clear internally that there had been long simmering tensions there. So all of this to say that it had been building over some time now, what was happening in the department, the management of the department between her and her chief advisor, Corey Lewandowski, who was serving as a special government employee. There had been multiple concerns from within the department about the way that she was handling things, even most recently when she said that she was suspending TSA PreCheck, and then the department had to reverse that within hours. So this has been just a shock for a lot of Homeland Security officials who, even though they thought the writing was on the wall with her leaving at some point, the fact that it has happened now in the wake of these hearings just has them all scrambling.
Priscilla Alvarez, please stand by. Let's go to Manu Raju, who's live on Capitol Hill. Manu, I promised that at some point I would ask you about the situation with Kristi Noem and these hearings. Clearly, they were disastrous.
Yeah, and no question about it. And there had been a lack of support for Kristi Noem throughout, and a growing number of Republicans expressing frustration, concern, and actually, frankly, not even saying if they would support her continuing in the job. And no doubt that echoed at the White House, and the President Trump clearly had some of those similar concerns as well. But I want you to listen to what some of the Republicans told me just in the last day about whether they would continue supporting Kristi Noem staying in that job.
That's right, Icy.
Do you have confidence in Secretary Noem? Time will tell. Would you vote for her again if you had a chance? Time will tell. Do you have confidence in her,
I'm not going to answer that. That's not my decision.
But you voted to confirm her.
That's not my decision. If the president, that's up to the president. I want to be a team player, and I want to secure the border, and I want to enforce our immigration laws. But I'm tired of trying to explain behavior that is inexplicable to me.
Well, if you had a chance to vote for her again, would you?
I'm not going to answer that, Manu. You can try 1,000 times, mate. Lots of luck to you.
He's very savvy with the media.
Now, Mark Wayne Mullen almost certainly would get the support of a majority of United States.
There is Mark Wayne Mullen. That is the replacement for Kristi Noem. Let's go to the other side of the news and give it to you from here. Let's go.
By Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, effective March 31st. So this coming down just moments ago as we continue to follow this breaking news.
And so she has the job until the 31st.
We do want to share just a little bit more while we're waiting to be joined by Ryan Schmelz, my colleague at Live Now from Fox. I wanted to share this live look with you because coming up at 2 p.m. Eastern time, we are expecting to hear from Representative Jeffries and possibly other Democratic lawmakers, and it will be interesting to see if they react to this breaking news that President Trump has now fired DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. So we were just hearing moments ago from Republican lawmakers prior to this breaking news. They did not allude to this, but we are going to continue to follow this. My producer is telling me something. Let's just mute my audio so I can hear what they have to say.
All right, we're going to keep an eye on this.
All right, so we're going to continue to follow this breaking news story. And for that, I did want to bring in my colleague, Ryan Schmelz, who has been covering all angles of Capitol Hill. So I'm just going to pull up his shot right here as you bear with me. This is live right here on Live Now from Fox as we continue to follow this. So I'm just going to put up the social media post from President Trump as we're working to get him routed in. But for now, take a look at this. This is President Trump's lengthy social media post naming the new DHS secretary.
All right, so we're going to jump over to some of this testimony that she gave. This was probably one of the things that caused her a lot of problems. Let's have a listen.
So, Secretary Noem, at any time during your tenure as Director of Department of Homeland Security, have you had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski?
Uh-oh.
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked that we're going down and peddling tabloid garbage in this committee today.
Reclaiming
and
my
ma'am,
time.
One thing that I would tell you is that he is a special government employee who works for the White House. There are thousands of them in the federal government.
So reclaiming
and
my
is an
time,
advisor
Secretary, it is
and has
okay for
no,
you to be
no
offended
authority
by
to
the
be
question.
making any
It is
decisions.
okay for you to
has
be
no
offended
authority
by the
to
question.
Be making
but it is
decisions
also a
and putting
real
up your
question.
position. So what I would say
and
to
you
you
should be able to
is
answer
that
the question.
what we do at the Department of Homeland Security every single
and without
day,
any hesitation,
every single day is to protect
if
this
someone
country
is
and
asking
to make
if
decisions.
you or any federal official is sleeping with their subordinate, that should be the easiest. You should be wanting to answer that question.
As garbage,
because it is not about
it is
your sex
offensive
life.
that you have brought
it is
that up.
about your judgment.
That kind of garbage
It is
has
about
been refuted
reclaiming
for
my
years,
time so
and
that
you
I
need
can
to
hear myself
recognize
Time belongs to the gentlelady from California, but it'd be nice if you would let her respond.
I will. I want to let you know it is about your judgment and decision-making. It is about the 260,000 employees that work under you that want to make sure that you are giving information and making decisions clearly. It is about conflict of interest. It is about a national security risk. Department of Homeland Security was created right after 9/11 to protect the homeland. And DHS has circulated an internal bulletin to law enforcement partners warning that the conflict of the war we're in could inspire lone actors or small-scale cyber activity inside the United States, according to a memo obtained by ABC News. So American lives are at risk. The people who work for you are at risk. And they want to know that the person at the top, you, are making decisions clearly, without any sort of cloudiness, and that they're your decisions because you're the secretary who was confirmed. That's what this is about. Saving the lives of Americans and not costing them millions of dollars and not having a secretary who's compromised in her decision-making.
Wow, that is heavy duty. We're going to jump over to Adam Schiff. Oh boy, we're going to have a listen to Adam Schiff. This is going to be, this is going to be good. Like and subscribe, guys. Subscribe to the channel. We are almost at 30,000 subscribers, and I really appreciate you guys for being here.
After another, or any Hollywood blockbuster film. So let me ask you, you said that the president approved this vast expenditure on a media campaign that largely profiles you.
$200 million.
How do you know that? Did he approve it to you personally?
this media campaign was critical in telling the world and this country that we are enforcing the laws in the United States of America. That if you're in your country illegally, then you should leave now, or if you want the chance to come back to the United States someday in the future. If you don't, you will be detained and will be removed and never get the chance to come back. It's been extremely effective in sending the message.
Madam Secretary, how do you know the president approved of this $220 million contract?
We had conversations and worked with OMB to make sure that the funding was there.
Excuse me, I just want to clarify. So you had conversations directly with the president where he approved this $220 million ad campaign that significantly features you?
Sir, this campaign was talking about making sure that people knew that our laws were being enforced.
Again, I want to make sure that
we continue to go through the process. It was a competitive bid campaign. I had nothing of choosing.
Excuse me, so the president approved this expenditure?
Sir, I've been explaining this to you, how it went. It was a competitive process. The career officials at the Department of Homeland Security
you don't want to confirm the president's role in this, and I can understand why. But you say it was a competitive process, and yet this contract went to a company that didn't exist 2 weeks before they got the contract.
Sir, I can't speak to that. I don't know the name of that company.
You're saying you can't speak to it, but let me ask you this. Are you saying it's just a coincidence? It's just a happy circumstance? It's just a fortuitous event that $143 million of that went to a subcontractor that you worked with extensively as governor in South Dakota or during your campaign, that is just coincidental?
The same process was followed for this media contract than any other media contract that's happened.
Just a coincidence.
At the Department of Homeland Security, I had nothing to do and no political
had nothing to do with it.
No choosing of who the contractors. And we don't have a legal process for weighing in on subcontractors. It doesn't exist.
Excuse me, just a coincidence also then that this $143 million.
To ask questions, you should want the answers.
I'm trying to ask a question.
You're trying to say that this was a political decision, and it absolutely was not.
I'm just asking you. So it's just a coincidence that a $143 million subcontract went to the husband of your press person, also someone that Corey Lewandowski, one of your special government employees, worked with extensively. So that was all a coincidence, right? Because you had no knowledge of this, no involvement.
Media company that
and
gets
none of the people
contract,
around you had any involvement.
The ability to choose the subcontractors. We don't weigh in
on
who subcontractors are. There's not a legal process for us to determine what subcontractors are a part of a contract that goes out for a competitive bid.
Can you state
and
for
only
the record,
career employees at DHS were in on the choosing of those media contracts.
Can you state for the record then that neither you nor Mr. Lewandowski nor your press secretary, married to the husband of the person who got this $143 million contract.
We were not a part of the decision making.
Can you state for the record that none of you that I've just described had any role, played any part, made any communication with any government agency that was involved in deciding who would get that contract?
To the best of my knowledge, none of us were involved in deciding who got those contracts for the media
campaign. But were any of you involved in advocating, communicating, or expressing a preference
to my knowledge,
in
Senator,
any way
not to
with
my
the government?
knowledge,
Excuse
Senator.
me. Let me just finish the question. Were any of you involved in any way in communicating, expressing a preference in any form, manner, verbal, written, with any government agency that was involved in the contracting process?
The same process was followed for that contract that is for all media contracts that have gone forward. To my knowledge,
yes or no?
So we are going to jump. We have a lot of clips from the testimony here. We're going to give you a little longer version of the one we just ran.
Staff who possesses an unchecked level of power at DHS. Under your leadership, this person has done things like fire your FEMA administrator while sitting behind your desk, which is your job to do, lobby to build the controversial detention facility known as Alligator Alcatraz, which has turned into a legal boondoggle costing Florida millions, and have veto and reviewing and signing power over large DHS contracts and grants, which again is your job. DHS has critical agency components like the Secret Service, FEMA, Border Patrol, cybersecurity. So does Corey Lewandowski have national security experience, military experience, law enforcement experience? No. He is a lobbyist, a failed campaign manager, which is causing my constituents who are waiting for their FEMA dollars and me to wonder what are his qualifications for this job. So according to the Wall Street Journal, you and Mr. L have a close relationship that has made President Trump, quote, uncomfortable. The president reportedly denounced Corey Lewandowski as your chief of staff due to reports of a romantic relationship between the two of you. So instead, you designated him as a special government employee, a position he has had well beyond the allowed 130 days and requires him to disclose if he is making money off of his position. Trump knows that this guy is shady. Corey has a decades-long record of physical battery, sexual harassment, illegal lobbying for a Venezuelan oil company, and bringing a loaded gun into a federal building. Despite being fired or removed from virtually every position he has ever held due to misconduct, he now wields unchecked, unconfirmed, undisclosed power over your department. This person has no experience running anything close to Department of Homeland Security or even advising someone in your position. He is unqualified, which again has left my constituents and I wondering why he is your top official. So Secretary Noem, at any time during your tenure as Director of Department of Homeland Security, have you had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski?
Yeah, who's this Corey?
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked that we're going down and peddling tabloid garbage in this committee today.
Reclaiming
and
my
ma'am,
time.
one thing that I would tell you is that he is a special government employee who works for the White House. There are thousands of them in the federal government.
So reclaiming
and
my
is
time,
an advisor
Secretary, it is
and has
okay for
no,
you to be
no
offended
authority
by
to
the
be
question.
making any
It is
decisions.
okay for you to
has
be
no
offended
authority
by the
to
question.
be making
But it is
decisions
also a
and putting
real
up your
question.
position. So what I would say
And
to
you should be able to
is
answer
that
the
what we do at the
question
Department of Homeland Security
clearly
every single
and without
day,
any hesitation.
every single day is to protect
If
this
someone
country
is
and
asking
to make
if
decisions.
you or any federal official is sleeping with their subordinate, that should be the easiest. You should be wanting to answer that question.
Is garbage?
Because it is not about
It is
your sex
offensive
life.
that you have brought
It is
that up.
about your
So
judgment.
that kind of garbage
It is
has
about
been refuted
reclaiming
for
my
years,
time so
and
that
you
I
need
can
to
hear myself.
recognize-
Time belongs to the gentlelady from California, but it'd be nice if you would let her respond.
I will. I want to let you know it is about your judgment and decision-making. It is about the 260,000 employees that work under you that want to make sure that you are giving information and making decisions clearly. It is about conflict of interest. It is about a national security risk. Department of Homeland Security was created right after 9/11 to protect the homeland. And DHS has circulated an internal bulletin to law enforcement partners warning that the conflict of the war we're in could inspire lone actors or small-scale cyber activity inside the United States, according to a memo obtained by ABC News. So American lives are at risk. The people who work for you are at risk. And they want to know that the person at the top, you, are making decisions clearly, without any sort of cloudiness, and that they're your decisions because you're the secretary who was confirmed. That's what this is about. Saving the lives of Americans and not costing them millions of dollars and not having a secretary who's compromised in her decision-making. And Mr. Chair, before I yield my time, I would like to enter into the record some articles, and I'm asking for unanimous consent. Noem tightens her grip on DHS. Lewandowski fired FEMA admin.
Without objection.
Okay. The next one is Kristi Noem secretly took a cut of political donations from ProPublica.
Without objection.
Kristi Noem fires pilot over a blanket, but is forced to reinstate him to fly home. Wall Street Journal.
Without objection.
Lewandowski taking out trash at Noem's D.C. home. Daily Beast.
Without objection.
Barbie's Mile High privacy chamber with alleged lover exposed. Wall Street Journal, how Corey Lewandowski became Kristi Noem's gatekeeper at DHS.
Without objection.
A pilot fired over Kristi Noem's missing blanket and the constant chaos inside DHS. Wall Street Journal. Police charged Trump campaign manager with assault. PBS News.
Without objection.
Woman who accused Corey Lewandowski of assault speaks out. I don't want this to happen to anyone else. CBS News. Lewandowski's firm quietly inked deal with Venezuela-owned company Politico.
Without objection.
List of U.S. cities raising security amid Iran conflict. Newsweek.
Without objection.
Kristi Noem, I have a few more, I'm sorry. Kristi Noem misled Congress yesterday about top aides' role in DHS contracts.
Without objection.
Policy number 10271 from ICE. It is an anti-fraternization policy prohibiting romantic or sexual relationships between supervisors and their subordinates. And with that, I yield.
Without objection, gentleman from Texas, recognized for 5 minutes.
Wow, let's go over and listen to Richard Blumenthal has a quick one here for you. She got grilled over there.
Let me ask you about a memo that evidently was written by the acting director of ICE. This memo, have you seen it?
I can't tell what it says. I see lots of memos. I see
this memo
many a
is
day.
by acting director Todd Lyons. It's been frequently referenced in the hearing that I conducted by the whistleblower who testified, Brian Schwank, as being the basis for instructing ICE agents. It specifically says that ICE agents should violate the Fourth Amendment and break into people's homes without a judicial warrant. Do you agree with it?
I will look at that memo, sir. I can't read it from here, but if it's referencing administrative warrants, that is the proper legal tool that this body has given us to utilize on immigration enforcement operations. Those administrative warrants were provided and affirmed by the Supreme Court. Let me ask you one last question. And we'll continue to use those.
Madam Secretary, does Corey Lewandowski have a role in approving contracts? And if so, what is that role?
His role is a special government employee, and special government employees work for the White House and the administration. There's thousands of them.
Oh, wow. That is a tough day at the office right there. Let's jump back over to the gentleman from Florida.
Next, the gentleman from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes.
Before I go, I just have a bunch of UC requests, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman may proceed. Is it going to be as long as the previous one?
You seem a little exhausted.
No, not at all. I just I think we're setting records, like Mr. Biggs and now the gentleman from California. You're gonna go for the record?
If I'm being honest, I threw out 50 of them.
God bless you. Let's go. So let's get started.
All right. A Vox article, the mess that Kristi Noem made.
Without objection.
Times article, Noem's spending rule causes delays at Homeland Security.
Without objection.
Politico, vote to overhaul FEMA canceled after leaked report.
Without objection.
ProPublica, Kristi Noem misled Congress about top aide's role at DHS.
Without objection.
The Hill, Trump approval rating on immigration at record low.
Without objection.
Wall Street Journal, pilot fired over Kristi Noem's missing blanket.
Without objection.
CNN article, sources describe how Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's Gucci bag was stolen under her chair.
What?
Without objection.
New York Times, late night is distracted by Kristi Noem's oversized hats. That one's my favorite. And a Times article, some Republicans join calls for DHS Secretary Kristi Noem to step down.
Without objection.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your indulgence. Before I begin, first let me say to the families that are still here, I am very sorry for your loss. I watched parents in my hometown of Parkland bury their kids after the shooting at my high school at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and I can't tell you that it was an out-of-body experience, and there's nothing like burying
kindness for the 250
so I am deeply sorry for your loss. Madam Secretary, welcome. Good afternoon. Thomas Massey mentioned Ron DeSantis' response during COVID. Well, you're looking at the guy who ran that response. I was the Director of Emergency Management for the state of Florida. For a Republican governor, I worked with the Trump FEMA administration during the Category 5 Hurricane Michael recovery. That Trump's FEMA was great. We got expedited reimbursement, a program that you got rid of or threatened to get rid of. And the Panhandle had one of the greatest responses after that Category 5 storm. The President said he wanted to reform FEMA, but that's not what you did. You've basically destroyed the agency. Largest FEMA backlog in the history of FEMA. My state of Florida is owed $2.5 billion. You have delayed the FEMA disaster declarations, even when the applicants meet FEMA's statutory threshold under the Stafford Act. You want states to do more, yet you want to cut the EMPG program, which grants them funding to build capacity. Your office was involved in discussions of moving FEMA to Texas. You created a rule of anything over $100,000 has to come to your desk, a rule that has slowed down FEMA reimbursement, FEMA response. We have empty regional offices. You have done the opposite of what President Trump wanted to accomplish, which was to speed up the process. Your policies have made the department slower.
I think I saw him
didn't
at
think
the
it was
Ram
possible
Ranch.
to make FEMA more bureaucratic, but boy, you have exceeded all my expectations. In the Texas floods, you didn't put the urban search and rescue crews on the road for 72 hours. Days later, the FEMA urban search and rescue chief resigned in protest. You hired 2 people as the administrator with no FEMA experience. We're on our 3rd FEMA administrator in 14 months. Never in the history of the department has that ever happened. The president took presidential action to create the FEMA Council. I supported it. You opposed the FEMA Council. You delayed its beginning. The report has still not come out. The White House canceled your last council meeting and has held up the release of the report. But surprise, I have it. I have it. I want to thank the former FEMA employees that you fired who gave this to me. This report's never been seen in public before, okay? But this is it. This was the report. It was 122 pages, the original draft report. You and Corey Lewandowski then took the report and made it 23 pages. You cut out all the stuff that was put in by governors who had been through disasters, emergency management directors, FEMA experts, national security experts. You cut it all out. It's all gone. That's why the report's not been released. It's sitting in the White House trying to figure out this mess that you created. So instead of getting the recommendations we need, now we have nothing. You've called Corey Lewandowski a special government employee. I understand what government means. I understand what employee means, okay? But I don't know what makes him special. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to answer on the record to Ms. Kamlager-Dove's question. I know you said it's garbage, and it may be, but I really think you need to say the word no into the record so that you can clear that up.
I think the ridiculousness of this and the tabloids that you are quoting and referencing are insane. And this has been something that I've refuted for years, and I continue to do that.
So it's a no.
What I would tell you is
we
when
can move
in
on.
regards
Hold
to
on.
what you're
Madam Secretary,
doing,
we can move on. I'm not going to belabor it.
this is what you do.
Hold on. I'm not doing anything.
Liberal left is you go off and you attack conservative women, and you say that we're either stupid
I haven't
or
said
we're
anything.
sluts.
All right, so listen.
And that's what you do.
Yesterday, Richard, reclaiming my time, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, reclaiming my time. You were asked by Richard Blumenthal yesterday. You were asked by Richard Blumenthal yesterday if Corey was involved in approving contracts. You said no. Do you want to correct that?
What I would say is that he has an advisor to the Department of Homeland Security, has no decision-making authority.
Madam Secretary, do you want to correct it, yes or no? You don't want to correct it? Fine.
No decision-making authority,
hold
no
on.
role in
Not a problem. According to one of the FEMA administrators that you fired, there is nothing, including contracts, that is brought to you that he hasn't reviewed. In fact, a significant amount of DHS internal routing documents has his signature on it above deputy secretaries. Okay, that former FEMA administrator wasn't fired by you, the secretary. He was fired by Corey. It was Corey that called him into your office. It was Corey that made him to submit to a polygraph test. The $100,000 spending rule that you created that comes to your desk, you're not even sitting at your desk. It's Corey who's sitting there. ISIS said the Republicans should be happy at the job that you're doing. Really? You're looking at the person who single-handedly took the president's signature core issue, immigration, the issue that got him elected from 59% to 39%. 200 miles of border walls being held up by you. They had to bring in Tom Homan, pull out of Minnesota. I think the country needs a national divorce from you on biblical grounds. I mean, if Donald Trump was still apprentice Trump, he would look at you and he would realize you're the weakest cabinet member and he would fire you. And if the president said to you that only way DHS could reopen is if you resigned, I hope you would take him up on it. Now, I want to end on a happy note, Mr. Chairman, real quickly. The president gave all sorts of stuff out during the State of the Union. I don't want you to leave. I got you a new Coast Guard blankie, the one you lost. Okay, so this is for you. You don't leave empty-handed when you come to judiciary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Wow, that is something. So now we're going to jump over to, I think this is this Cory Booker?
7/2025, UC request. Officials criticize Biden vetting.
Not yet.
But Afghan shooting suspect was granted asylum under Trump. And then September 29, 2025, Courthouse News, states sue DHS again over cuts to anti-terrorism grants for blue states.
Without objection, the gentlelady from Texas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. And Madam Secretary, you are almost to the end, so congratulations. I just have a couple of questions. Are you aware that the law that was written by this Congress makes it clear that members of Congress are allowed to, entitled to enter any detention?
Representative Crockett, I apologize. I have to run to vote in another committee, Secretary, and Mr. Schmidt will chair, and you will get extra 15 seconds, but I apologize for that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much
Mr.
for your
Chairman.
testimony.
Appreciate it.
Are you aware that the law makes it clear that members of Congress are allowed to enter any detention facility at any point in time in which they choose to?
Yes, I'm aware of the visitation and oversight responsibility, and we work every day to try to accommodate members of Congress while taking into account the safety of those individuals that are being detained
be clear.
there.
At any time, correct?
Yes, I understand there's litigation in this area.
No, that's not my question. I'm not asking you about litigation. I'm asking you what the law is, because let me put it to you this way.
There's an appropriations rider that talks about oversight.
And appropriations are law, because you are asking us to appropriate dollars right now for DHS, correct?
Correct.
And if we do that, you would take that as law, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that is what the law states, yet somehow, myself and another colleague, Congressman Castro, we ended up giving a 7-day notice to the Dilley detention facility because I had actually already gone to El Paso before. And when I went to that facility and I asked them why it was that they were requiring me to do something that specifically my branch of government had dictated was not required, they said it was because of you. They said you were the one that said that they were not allowed to allow us entry unless we gave a 7 days heads up. Is that true?
Yeah. The law specifically states oversight and visitations, and we are working to facilitate those. And we're at that time working
did you give the instruction that members must give a 7 days heads up or not?
We had a policy in place that allowed us to get the staff.
Were you the one that ordered that policy?
I have a responsibility for ensuring everybody in that facility is going to be safe, and that I have adequate
no, but that's not my question, because the
conduct
problem, let me tell you why we need to reclaim my time. The reason that I'm talking to you about this policy and you're talking to me about safety is because I did go into the Dilley detention facility. And let me tell you, they're not safe. This is why we need to conduct oversight, because your people continue. In fact, you have lost more lives in detention than anybody else. That is your record right now. So I don't expect that y'all are going to be the ones that are going to be best to keep them safe. This is why we are supposed to conduct oversight and not wait for you to give permission. In fact, after I left the Dilley facility, we were informed of a measles outbreak that was taking place in that facility. And another question I have, are you the one that ordered it to be reopened because that facility was closed under Joe Biden?
Those facilities were opened with the new administration. I'd have to look and see.
You're part of the new administration. Were you the one that ordered it to be open is my question.
I would have to see when it was opened, because I wasn't sworn in until 5 days after.
Okay, well, it was reopened in March.
I would have to look at when
it was reopened in March of last year.
Well, then I'm sure that contract would have been renewed while I was secretary.
Speaking of contracts, as I have actually, you know what? Let me continue on this line of y'all breaking the law. Are you familiar with a child by the name of Liam Ramos?
I am.
All right, so Liam was at this Dilley facility, and it just so happened that we had put in our 7 days notice and y'all had grabbed him 6 days prior to our visit. So we were able to go and visit Liam. Are you aware of the court order that came down that released Liam from custody?
I am.
Because we're watching.
And are you aware that the judge said
that's why
the case has its genesis in an ill-conceived and incompetently implemented government pursuit of daily deportation quotas, apparently even if it requires traumatizing children. This court and others regularly send undocumented people to prison and orders them deported, but do so by proper legal procedures. Are you aware of that?
Yes, and I would disagree with the judge on several points.
I'm sure you would, but can you tell me whether or not you have a law degree?
Father chose to.
Can you tell me whether or not you have a law degree?
If I have what?
A law degree.
No, I do not have a law degree.
And you do understand, because I can go through a bunch of court cases and orders that I disagree with from the Supreme Court, that ultimately, that is the order of the court. That is what you follow, and if you have an issue, you appeal it up, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. The court went on to say, apparent also is the government's ignorance of an American historical document called the Declaration of Independence. 33-year-old Thomas Jefferson enumerated grievances against a would-be authoritarian king over his nascent nation. Among others were, He has sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. He has excited domestic insurrection among us, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. He has kept us among, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. Are you aware that he wrote that? Do you know that he was writing about ICE that falls under you?
The judge?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. With that, I will yield, but I do have 2 UCs.
Okay, so she's going to do her UCs, which are just well, this one is Cory Booker. We're going to be looking at a lot of clips here. These are very, very, it's just crazy what happens in these congressional hearings. Let's go. Hey guys, by the way, I am less than 20 subscribers away from 30,000. I would really appreciate it if you guys hit that subscribe with the like. Thank you very much for being here. Let's go.
You're in charge of your agency. The buck stops with you, correct?
I'm in charge of my agency. What?
The buck stops with you.
Yes,
correct?
correct.
And you had to swear an oath to the Constitution before you took this job, right?
Correct.
So one of the most sacrosanct ideals of our nation, enshrined in our Constitution, is freedom, is liberty.
Mm-hmm.
It is an idea that the government has a very high standard should they take away liberty and freedom from an American citizen. How many U.S. citizens has DHS detained as of last October?
Senator, if you're talking about detained and arrested, is that those that have been violating and obstructing our law enforcement operations? Is that what you're referencing? Because it could be hundreds and hundreds. We have faced violent riots across the country,
you are
specifically in Portland and in
the
Minneapolis.
only people you've detained are committing crimes, but you and I both know that's not true.
I haven't said that. I didn't
so
say
then
that.
how
I asked
many
which ones you
people
were referencing.
have you detained?
I can't give you an accurate number because we've literally detained and arrested many for those obstruction of law enforcement operations, and
So
also
public
others
records,
that had probable
let me tell you what
cause
my staff researched.
and then released
May I
yes.
continue?
I love his glasses.
Public
all the time.
records
His
are
readers.
showing that over 170 incidents
That's funny.
of your agency unlawfully taking away the liberties and freedoms of American citizens. This includes 20 children, 20 American kids that your agency detained. How long can your agency detain an American citizen?
We don't detain children and separate them from their parents. Those parents have chosen
You're telling me
to
under
keep their
oath
child
right now.
with
Hold on.
them.
I just want to be clear. You're telling me under oath right now that your agency has not detained American children.
Those parents have chosen to keep their children with them. We don't separate families like the
So,
Biden
hold on.
administration
Let me
did.
continue.
We keep them together, and parents have the option on if they want their child with them or not with them.
How long do detentions last when you detain an American citizen? How long do they last?
We don't detain American citizens, and if there's probable cause.
Let me give you, because you are not speaking truthfully under oath.
Whoa.
Isaiah Pena Salcedo, a U.S. citizen living in California, was detained more than 70 hours, almost 3 days, even after he showed ICE agents his passport. My colleague, Senator Blumenthal, gave you example after example. He brought people here who had something else we Americans consider sacrosanct, our home, our property. Your masked agents jumping out of unmarked cars have broken into, considerable property damage occurring, into American citizens' homes. Case after case of this, and you sit here before me and claim the buck stops with you, but you don't even know the names of these individuals. I ran New Jersey's largest municipal police department. When my officers engaged in misconduct, you can be damn well sure I knew about it and I investigated it. And yet you have situations where your officers are violating the sanctity of people's homes, arresting and detaining them and holding their children. And you're acting as if you don't know about it and saying that under oath. Miramar Martinez, who is here right now, on her way to church, an American citizen going to church,
Like
not
and
just to
subscribe,
worship, but
guys.
to
Like
donate
and
clothing.
subscribe.
Your officer shot her multiple times. The case was thrown out of court, and you represent here that you don't know about it. In New Jersey, are you aware of your officers' activities in places like
Ted.
schools?
That's funny, Ted.
Are you aware of your officers' activities at our public schools?
Sir, we don't go into schools and do targeted law enforcement operations. We do targeted law enforcement operations like other agencies
So you're
and law
telling me that
enforcement
ICE officers entered the grounds of a high school in Minneapolis? That's a fact. Elementary school children in New Jersey are terrified of your agents. When they came upon a school bus stop, they fled. Another school, a higher education, Columbia University, your agents reportedly lied to students, told them they were searching for a missing person to gain access to private spaces, to non-public areas of campus. Secretary Noem, these are kids. They're terrified in our communities. How do you think that affects them when children in my state go running, fleeing, and often you all pursue children, throwing them to the ground, getting on their backs, putting them in handcuffs? I want to talk to you about this incredible empire of for-profit companies that are profiting at rates we've never seen, and the way you're using money. Let's drill down on the warehouses that DHS has been buying over the last several months, totaling hundreds of millions of dollars. Are you familiar with the acquisition of a warehouse DHS recently bought in Roxbury Township, New Jersey?
Yes.
Roxbury.
You are familiar with that.
Mm-hmm. I'm
Do you
familiar
know
that
how
it's-
much you spent for it?
Like and
No, sir, I
subscribe,
do not.
guys. Like and subscribe to the
$129.3
channel.
million. Do you know how much it was assessed for in New Jersey?
Sir, we're purchasing centers across the country to build efficiency into our detention system.
Efficiency to
so that
me,
we
as
can,
a person who's run tight budgets before and had taxpayer dollars, you paid $129.3 million for a facility in my state that was assessed at less than half of that, at $62 million. To work for a president that says he's a great deal maker, I can't believe he thinks that you're a great deal maker. But what's worse than that is that the Roxbury Township Council, comprised entirely of Republicans, voted unanimously early this year to oppose that facility. My office tried to facilitate a meeting between DHS and local officials so that ICE could hear their concerns, yet DHS did not even respond. That is unacceptable, that you all would enter a town. You wouldn't even follow environmental reviews or have conversations with local officials about the resources, from emergency resources to fire resources and more, that you're going to pull down. You didn't even have a conversation. Secretary Noem, do you comply with court orders?
yes, we do comply
Your
with
agency
court
complies
orders.
with court orders.
Yes, we comply with federal court
you were
orders.
saying under oath that you do, and yet we know in January the chief judge, Republican appointed for the Federal District of Minnesota, found that ICE had violated nearly 100 court orders since January 1st alone.
It's a lot.
In my state of New Jersey, last month, the chief of staff to Deputy Attorney General admitted in my state that New Jersey District Court, in the New Jersey District Court, that the government had violated 52 separate court orders, all involving cases where immigrants successfully challenged the legality of their detention. So this again, is a constitution that you swore an oath to. And one of the most important ideals is that no one is above the law. You are violating the separation of powers, violating court orders, and routinely violating the civil rights of Americans. This is a reckless and out-of-control agency that you are responsible for. You seem to have no situational awareness whatsoever of some of the most egregious examples of Americans being completely attacked, violated, undermined in accordance with our laws by their own government. And this is what is phenomenal to me, is immigration was your president's #1 issue, overwhelmingly popular with the American people. But now it's overwhelmingly unpopular. And it's not because you are deporting dangerous people that everybody here wants out of our country. No, it's because you're going into our schools. You're terrorizing our children. You're detaining children. You're arresting Americans. You're breaking into our homes. You're terrorizing our streets. You're violating our rights to peacefully protest again and again and again.
None of
and then
that
when a
is true.
court tells you
None
to
of
stop,
that is true.
and then when a court
You are
tells
trying
you to stop,
to impede
you
us
violate
from enforcing
judges'
the law
orders. Not in
and
a
getting
partisan
dangerous
way,
criminals off of our streets
Republican-appointed and
so we don't have
Democratic
more
appointed.
families like the ones that are
Don't
sitting
sit
behind
there
me.
and tell me that
Lost
you are
their children. They're
responsible
gone forever.
for the running of your agency when you're not even aware. Either you are utterly incompetent or you are violating laws with impunity. You should step down from your position. If you don't, you should be removed by this president. And if not, Congress should impeach you.
I appreciate the encouragement.
Support journalism. Wow, that is crazy. Let's go to the honorable gentleman, Joe Neguse.
Consent request from the gentleman from Texas.
This one says they had no mercy on her. So let's have a look. And by the way, thank you, everybody. This channel has officially hit 30,000 subscribers because of you guys. God damn, thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to insert the record an article from the Hill Country Community Journal, Kerrville's hometown paper, outlining, and is titled, Kristi Noem Joins Governor in Support of Kerr Community, Tours Areas of Destruction, from last summer. I was personally there.
Without objection.
Secondly, I'd like to insert into the record an article titled Trump Recounts Daring Texas Flood Rescue Reunites Camper with Coast Guard Swimmer at State of the Union, for the record. And I thank the Secretary.
Without objection. The gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Madam Secretary. Thank you for being here. I want to discuss in greater detail the expansion of advertising in your department under your tenure. And I believe you testified regarding some of these matters yesterday in front of the United States Senate. In particular, I want to discuss the department's $200 million, $220 million ad campaign. This is the ad campaign that featured you at Mount Rushmore. You're familiar with this ad campaign, correct?
I am familiar with it. It was an ad campaign that was
I'm going to ask you some questions about it, Madam Secretary. So, as I understand it, this is a $220 million ad campaign. It's split between two contractors. One of those contractors got $143 million. That contractor is called Safe America Media, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That company is affiliated with a former political director of the National Republican Congressional Committee. Now, yesterday you testified, I think I'm quoting you right, you said, quote, or in reference to this contract, that, quote, it went out to a competitive bid. Do you stand by that statement?
It was a no-bid contract where two vendors were.
It was a no-bid
chosen.
contract.
If it would have been a no-bid contract, if I'm using that correctly, it goes out to two different vendors.
Correct. So it was not a
many
competitive.
media
Let me try to explain what the discrepancy, because a competitive bid is very different than a no competitive bid, and I'll just explain why. We know that your testimony yesterday, when you said, again, I'll quote, it went out to a competitive bid, is untrue. The reason we know it's untrue is because under federal law, your agency is required, whenever the agency decides to skip competitive bidding, to file a notice with the public explaining why. And in this case, your agency filed a notice. You're aware of that, right? Justification and approval for other than full and open competition. Your agency made a decision not to proceed with competitive bidding, and one of the contractors that got the award was this Safe America Media Company that received $143 million.
Thank you, guys.
Many vendors got the chance to look at that contract and to participate in it.
Well,
so that is why the two of them were
that's
chosen.
Inaccurate, Madam Secretary. I'll read from the notice from your agency. Given the immediate action to significantly reduce illegal immigration and border crossings, DHS identified 4 companies. 4 of the hundreds of thousands of companies in the United States, you identified 4. One of those is this Safe America Media Company. Where is Safe America Media headquartered?
I don't know.
I don't know either, Madam Secretary. We can't find it. We can't find a website. we did find an address that's registered for this company. Do you know where that address is?
Is there a problem with this contract?
I'll
Because
tell you about
It was done
it.
according to
Madam
law.
Secretary,
It was done by
the
career
address is
officials.
registered to a political
It was
operative.
dollars that were spent
Madam Secretary, the
to
company,
inform
and then
people
I'll give you an
that the
opportunity to
laws-
respond. The company is registered to a political operative in Virginia. Do you know, just by way of example, whether this company that received $143 million in taxpayer dollars, has it ever done work for the government before?
I don't know. I can't.
The answer is it has not. And do you know why we know that? Because it was incorporated 8 days before this contract went out. You want the American people to believe that this is all above board?
Yes,
that $143 million of taxpayer money just happened to go to this one company that doesn't have a headquarters, doesn't have a website, has never done work for the federal government before, and is registered apparently or attached to a residence from a political operative. And of course, one of the subcontractors of that contract, as you know, is a political firm that's tied to you back when you were governor of South Dakota. The reason why I ask these questions is that this is taxpayer money. And I presume, I don't know this for a fact, but Senator Tillis noted yesterday the way in which your agency is blocking the Inspector General from 11 different investigations that it is trying to conduct. I don't know if this happens to be one of them. I certainly hope it is, because eventually the facts will become public in this regard. And there are serious laws implicated, conflict of interest laws, federal procurement laws, that I believe
All
merit.
followed. All done correctly.
Was
All
it
done
all done
legally.
correctly?
14 billion impressions from that
the-
marketing campaign.
sure.
It was money spent in this country and in 8 different countries that illegal migration was coming from.
Madam Secretary,
Overwhelmingly
yeah,
effective.
we all
$49
understand the
billion.
argument that you've made. The argument that you've made that somehow this ad campaign on Fox News of you at Mount Rushmore has led to millions of people self-deporting. You're
Why do you-
using
why do you think
millions
that
of
they did
dollars of
self-deport?
taxpayer
Had they not known?
money in this way. It is fraud, and ultimately, I think there's going to be accountability. And I yield back, Bill.
Can I speak to the IG?
Yes, you can, quick.
The IG has been told repeatedly, in writing, verbally, on the phone, that he can have access to anything at the Department of Homeland Security.
Inspector
He
General
can. He
is
doesn't
the
need my
IG guy.
permission to come and brief members of Congress on the Hill. He just needs to provide a scoping memo, which is.
So we're going to jump over. This one is going to be this is going to be crazy. This is Mr. Swalwell, the gentleman from California.
Chairman.
Thank you. I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell.
Secretary, you have referenced many times the families behind you, and I see the families, and I see your pain, and I see your loss. I see those who are still with us but have been hurt and changed. And I'm sorry that this has happened to you. And I see you, I know my colleagues see you, our country sees you, and I thank you for being here today. Secretary, my question for you is, do you see families like Miguel Lopez, who was a neighbor of mine in Livermore, California? Miguel had lived in Livermore for over 30 years. He raised his 3 children in Livermore. His youngest is a senior at a local high school, just finished his football season. Miguel worked at a winery where my wife and I were married almost 10 years ago. Miguel had done everything that was asked of him, went to every immigration proceeding that he was supposed to go to, and in April was put in handcuffs as he was following the orders of the court and going to the proceedings. He was arrested and sent to Mexico over a judge's objection that he not be sent to Mexico and he stay in the United States. Every Sunday night, his wife Rosa and the family have a dinner and there's an empty chair at the dinner table. Miguel's not there. I went and saw Miguel in Mexico. He doesn't have a job. He's not able to provide. And he said his Spanish isn't even that great because he hasn't been there for 30 years and it's hard for him to communicate. Do you see the pain of families like Miguel Lopez, someone who did not commit a violent crime but has been separated from his family and is not providing, is not working?
Congressman,
do you see that pain?
Did he have a criminal record?
Did Mr. Lopez have a criminal record?
Oops.
In 1995, he pled to a lesser nonviolent charge. But do you see the pain
I do
that somebody?
I do see the pain,
Okay.
and I wish people would do things correctly. If they're not in legal status in this country, they can return home. We will pay for them to return home.
Yeah.
I hope he got the $2,600 he could
Do you
have gotten.
think that makes up for not being with his family?
It helps because we have agreements with these countries where they are helping to facilitate housing.
It was a
and
nonviolent
training,
crime, Secretary.
But then he gets the chance to come back the right way. Now that he's waited until he's been detained and deported, he will never get the chance to come back to the United States.
It was
And
a
so I wish that
nonviolent-
he would have made the right decision and decided to go home to help his family and him to be together. They have choices that they can make to be together, and we're hopeful that they will continue to do that.
The president also, by the way, is a convicted felon, if you want to talk about criminal records. Secretary Noem, did you or your staff fire one of your pilots recently?
No,
No pilot was relieved of their duty?
no.
The
Not
story
that I'm aware of.
So the story, and recognizing you're under oath, the story in the Wall Street Journal was incorrect.
That individual was not fired. Do you know how many years it takes to get a military officer to be fired? That story was
Was he asked to not
completely
fly the
inaccurate.
next day?
It was not accurate, and I was surprised that the Wall Street Journal would print that many inaccuracies in one article.
Well, the Wall Street Journal is not a liberal newspaper of record. Well, tell me
I don't know
then,
what it is anymore.
has a single ICE agent or CBP officer been disciplined since you've been Secretary of Homeland Security? As we've seen women dragged through their streets by their hair and thrown into unmarked cars, people chased through the fields and factories where they work, public executions happening in our streets. Has a single ICE agent or CBP officer been disciplined?
Yes, they have.
How many?
I don't know the number. I can get that for you if
Do you
you'd
think that
like me
number is
to.
important?
I think that it's wise and smart, and what we're doing is accurate according to the law by doing those internal investigations through the process that's set up. There's an Office of Professional Responsibility that does the investigation, and decisions are brought before the National Use of Force Board, and they review each incident as objectively outside of that law enforcement encounter, and then give a decision for
Has
it.
anyone been fired? Has anyone lost their job?
There could be.
Well, I'm not asking if it could be. I'm asking, has anyone been fired?
I'm certain that they have. That happens once in a while when there is a need for someone to be
For
held
conduct related
accountable.
to enforcement actions?
We hold our law enforcement officers accountable and are grateful that they serve, that they put their lives on the line, and also recognize that when these situations that they follow their training and the legality of the course to how they interact with the public.
This is a tough day at the office for the Honorable Kristi Noem, as it says on her tag. This is Senator Kennedy coming in hot.
After the two
Like and
killings
subscribe,
in
guys.
Minneapolis, and I think there's a lot of video on them, Madam Secretary. I think people can see the video and draw their own conclusions. Are you and your department conducting an investigation of those?
Sir, the investigation is being led by the FBI. HSI was involved. In fact, our HSI agents on the ground.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I got so little time. I believe at the time you said these
on her
were
tag, on her name
acts
tag.
of domestic terrorism. Is that right?
Sir, in answer to questions at the press conference that afternoon, it was that it appeared to be.
Yeah, but you said these appeared to be acts of domestic terrorism.
And as I've said previously in this hearing,
But
is that
first, Madam Secretary, did you say
we're getting
that? I think it's
information.
Put a 1 in the chat if you support Trump. Put a 2 in the chat if you do not. Let's see what the temperature is, excuse me, in here. Put a 1 in the chat if you support Trump. Put a 2 in the chat if you do not.
From a chaotic
Hit that like button.
scene on the
Did you say
ground
that?
and relaying information to the American people.
Okay. Now, again, those videos are public. People can draw their own conclusions. I think it'd be safe to say you got some pushback on that.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be fair?
Yes, sir.
And you had some criticism. I'm not saying the criticism was accurate or inaccurate. I think you did. What got my attention was that you blamed those statements on Mr. Stephen Miller at the White House. Did you not?
No, sir, I did not. And in fact, where you're seeing that is in a news article of anonymous sources. And anonymous sources say a lot of things, but I've never said that at all.
Well, here's what you said on the record. I'm going to read your words. Quote, everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen.
Sir, where did you see me say that at? You read that in a news article with no sources affiliated to it.
You said it on the record on January 27th of 2026. Did I read your words accurate?
I enjoy working with the president and with Stephen Miller, and that day we were working to get as much information to the American people as possible. That is what we'll continue to do, and as that happens, we'll go forward.
Do you think it was fair to blame Mr. Miller?
Sir, I did not do that. You're reading from a newspaper article with anonymous sources.
Are you denying that you said that?
Sir, I'm not going to speak to that situation that is relayed on anonymous sources that no one has heard me say that.
It was you.
We are going to just cut through this and go right to another one. We have all the clips here for you today, guys.
Chairman, a unanimous consent request to
gentleman's recognized.
Enter into the record a tweet from the Department of Homeland Security responding to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Nadler's claims earlier.
Yep, without objection. Gentlelady from North Carolina for unanimous consent.
Yes, I have three, Mr. Chairman. I ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record a climate power article titled Kristi Noem Gutted Disaster Response.
Objection.
And then a unanimous consent request to enter into the record a Guardian article titled A Bar, Kitchen, Flat Screen TVs, $70 million DHS is eyeing for deportation.
Objection.
And then the last one, a press release by my colleagues on the Appropriations Committee, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem spends $200 million taxpayer dollar money for a pair of Gulfstream private jets.
Without objection. Gentlelady from Vermont is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Secretary Noem, I want to start with your testimony in front of Congress last year. You said, quote, I think it's shameful to see the defense of individuals who break our laws. We are a nation of laws. If we are not a nation of laws, we are no nation at all. Do you stand by that?
I do.
We are a nation of laws. And obviously, in a nation of laws, agencies have to comply with lawful court orders. Secretary Noem, since you took over the department, how many times has DHS violated a court order?
We always comply with federal court orders. I believe the instances that you're talking about are times when a judge has issued an order and notification came to us in a period of time that was a large enough gap to not meet the deadline. So we may have missed
Secretary
a deadline.
Noem, if I could,
never violated
if I
a
could,
court
Secretary
order.
Noem,
We've always
I have
followed
the
those
numbers
federal
handy
court
right
orders.
here because last week a federal judge appointed by George W. Bush identified 210 times when your agency violated court orders. And one judge has said about ICE has likely violated more court orders in January of 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire
LJA, thank
existence.
you for the jewels.
Now, Secretary Noem, you have said repeatedly that your department is, quote, following all court orders. But just because you keep saying it does not make it true. And Americans aren't stupid, and they can see what is happening, and judges are also sounding the alarm. In a case where you attempted to deport Ramesa Öztürk because of her First Amendment protected rights, First Amendment protected speech, the judge said that you and Secretary Rubio had engaged in an unconstitutional conspiracy and that you both failed in your duties to protect the Constitution. And frankly, those words are absolutely shocking. And the reality is that you refuse to acknowledge, and you're doing it here today, you refuse to acknowledge that your agency has broken the law. Since you have been at the helm of this agency, has anyone at DHS lied to a federal judge?
No, we comply with all federal court orders. I'm surprised that
So is your testimony that you have not?
It should not be shocking
Is
to
your
you that we
testimony
face-
that no one at ICE has violated a court order or has lied to a federal judge. Is that your testimony?
To my knowledge, I'm not aware of any
Okay.
situations where that has happened.
So when you look at what the court said in the Erupts case, it said the court rejects this testimony from ICE's leadership as disingenuous, as squalid, and dishonorable. So we have a federal judge who has rejected testimony from ICE's leadership because it wasn't true. So the head of ICE, Acting Director Todd Lyons, lied in sworn testimony. Has he been fired?
Catfight.
No, Todd Lyons is a good man who has
Have there been any, Secretary Noem, have there been any consequences? Has there been any consequences for him lying to a federal judge? That's what I want to know. Are there any consequences for someone under your leadership
common knowledge
lying?
We have activist judges out there throwing opinions.
So you have
around that
said
are not based on
repeatedly,
law,
again, I just want to bring us back to my question. You have said that we are a nation of laws.
Yes.
Nobody
so much for the
is above
20
the
gifted
law.
membership,
You are not above
86.
the law.
I appreciate
Todd
you
Lyons
so
is
much.
not above
Thank
the
you.
law.
Believe that,
No
then
one
every
working
person
for
in this
you,
country
nobody
legally
working for you
should be
is
held
above the
accountable
law.
for breaking
So I
that
want to
law.
say this, Secretary Noem, it is shocking to Americans right now to see that you can sit in front of this committee
Same to you,
and
Ivor.
continue to
Couldn't have done it
cover
without you.
for
All the
people who are
mods.
working under you. You're in charge now. This is your DHS. The buck stops with you. The fact that you have people working under you that are lying to federal judges and that you're not going to take responsibility for that and hold them accountable to that is shocking.
Eminence front.
And I
Welcome
think
to
Americans
Silver. Thank
deserve
you.
so much better than that. And your employees have regularly ignored court orders and lied to judges. Now you're covering up. And I just want to say, this conduct alone is impeachable. And I want you to know that Americans will get accountability for the damage.
They are going to get accountability. Let's listen to Senator. This is Chuy Garcia. This is one of our favorites. Thank you so much, Eminence Front, for the 20 gifted memberships. And welcome new members. We just hit 30,000 subscribers here on the Zero Dark Tony channel. Ivor, Coco, Artex, Mopey, 86, and so many other people to thank. I appreciate you so much. I couldn't have done it without you guys. So we did it, and onward and up. So let's go.
Go with the guy from the gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and Secretary Noem. I'm glad that you finally made it here. I know you're busy using our tax dollars to trample on the Constitution, to enrich yourself, and to cosplay as law enforcement for your camera crew. We've seen it. You've led the campaign of terror by masked armed criminals in my district in Chicagoland and around the country. You celebrate the murder of American citizens with the same enthusiasm that you showed when you killed your own puppy. You symbolize the cruelty, corruption, and incompetence of this administration and the Republican go-alongs. Your thugs at DHS brutalize the American people, and you lie and smear victims to cover up these crimes. Let's talk about two examples in my district. On September 12th, an ICE agent murdered Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, who had just dropped off his kids at school as he tried to leave a traffic stop. I said the officer sustained, quote unquote, severe injuries. Sitting there here under oath, do you stand by the claim that the officer was severely injured, yes or no?
I don't know the case you're speaking to specifically.
The whole country knows and you don't know. Let's play the clip of the agent talking about his injuries.
Jago. Thank you,
Left knee injury and some lacerations to his hands. Nothing major.
What you just heard was the agent himself describing his injuries as, quote unquote, nothing major, which means your agency lied to cover up the unjustified murder of Silverio by an ICE agent. Let's talk about Marimar Martinez, a U.S. citizen who was shot five times by Border Patrol agent Charles Exum. You were asked about Marimar at yesterday's Senate hearing, and you should be familiar with the case by now. DHS has repeatedly said that Marimar was a quote-unquote domestic terrorist who, quote-unquote, rammed federal agents with her vehicle. Sitting here under oath, do you stand by these claims, yes or no?
Congressman, we've seen a 3,000% increase in
Do you
people
stand by the
weaponizing their
claims?
vehicles
You've had an
against law
opportunity to look into the case, yes or
We
no?
have a changing situation on the ground all
Yes
the
or
time.
no?
with
You're
weapons.
familiar with the case. It was brought up yesterday.
I'm familiar with the case.
Let's play the clip and see what we see as evidence.
All right, it's time to get aggressive and get the out because they're trying to box us in.
Watch out. We're gonna make contact.
That's Chewy Garcia, Kelly.
We are boxed in.
All right, that's all now. Fuck it. All right, out of the car.
Be advised, we've been struck. We've been struck. Don't you move.
Wow.
The
That's
5
intense.
shots that you heard against a U.S. citizen. So the agents said they were going to make contact, rammed their vehicle into Marimar's, immediately lied about it, and then shot her in cold blood. And then DOJ dismissed all charges against her. I wonder why. So once again, DHS lied to cover up its crimes. And this morning, you took back to social media, DHS continued to double down on her and lied again. Let me be clear. You are a disgrace to this nation, and you should resign or face impeachment. And every crime, including the murder of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez and of Marimar, must be fully investigated and prosecuted. But while you are, to borrow a phrase, the worst of DHS secretaries, the agency has been rogue and lawless since its inception in 2002. It was set up to expand surveillance and undermine civil rights by falsely labeling immigrants and protesters as terrorists, as we just saw. That's exactly what it's doing, and exactly why DHS must be dismantled and the immigration system must be rebuilt from the bottom up. That's why Americans all over believe that this agency has gone too far.
Okay, so now we're going to jump to Kristi Noem's opening statement. There was actually a protester that jumped into this. That makes this pretty interesting. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. Hit the like button, subscribe, and share. We just do news a little bit differently around here. All right? You see the ears. That's our mascot right there.
Kristi Noem, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm a
No.
former female.
Okay. Well.
FEMA employees should be responding to disasters, not ICE. You should be ashamed of yourself. Your staff say abolish ICE. Your staff say abolish ICE. Your staff say
This is a protester.
Steve Bannon, long an advisor to the president, one of his earliest public supporters, recently said that ICE should be deployed at the polls in the next election.
Mr. Coons.
Will you rule out the deployment of ICE or CBP to polling places this November?
There are no plans to have ICE officers at our polling locations. And
I'm glad to
do you-
hear that, but would you rule it out? Would you say it will not happen?
Do you plan on illegal aliens voting in our elections, Senator?
I do not. In
Okay,
fact,
then
the
there should be
Heritage
no need to,
Foundation-
unless you plan on illegal
Madam
aliens
Secretary, the
voting.
Heritage Foundation recently concluded that over a 20-year period where they reviewed hundreds of millions, billions of voting cases, they found only a small handful of actual cases of illegals voting. So I'm concerned by your rebuttal, which suggests you may be unfamiliar with 18 U.S.C. Section 592. Are you familiar with this federal statute that relates to sending armed men to polling places?
There are no plans to send any of our law enforcement officers to
But
polling
Madam Secretary,
locations,
you're
sir.
clear it would
There
be a
have been
federal
illegal
crime
aliens.
for you to do so.
There are illegal aliens that have voted, and it's been proven in the past in certain cases in certain states. We provide a program to states. I think we have 27 different states that utilize our SAVE program now to verify individuals that are eligible to vote in their elections. And as states run their election systems, we encourage them to use that to make sure they maintain their election integrity.
Madam Secretary, can you understand how when Steve Bannon says publicly, we should have ICE at the polls, and you say there are no plans, that's not enough to rule out the possibility of a violation of this long-standing federal law? Will you issue a directive that ICE and CBP should be nowhere near polling places this November?
We have no plans to have ICE officers or law enforcement at polling locations. States are responsible for running their elections, and we're giving them tools and mitigation efforts that they can utilize in order to make sure they maintain the integrity of those elections and that individuals can trust their systems to ensure that their vote counts.
Brand them as domestic terrorists. Can you explain why you decided to brand these victims that we all saw on video who were out protesting the activities of your agency and were killed as a result of it? How did you think that calling them domestic terrorists at that scene was somehow going to calm the situation?
You know, Senator, we are working in those situations where there's a tragic loss of life and that there is something that our agents are involved in, that we continue to deliver information.
Is it so hard to say you were wrong?
We continue, as these investigations continue to go, we will provide, I absolutely strive to provide factual information and will continue to do that.
And when you fail, do you admit it publicly?
Absolutely. We always know that there's room for improvement, that we will.
Stop the talk, so.
Steve Porter Jr. and Dr. Linda Davis. They were Americans killed by ICE. You are not giving their family any justice. Say their names. Their Black Lives Matter. Their Black Lives Matter.
Oh boy. That was a protester there.
Could you explain this?
Sir, I'm looking at a picture of an interior, looks like a bedroom.
Of an airplane?
On a jet.
Yes, sir.
You're not familiar with that?
These photos are not accurate. If you're referring to the airplanes that the Department of Homeland Security has purchased and are purchasing, we're using them for long-range command and control aircraft that is dictated in statute by Congress for the Department of Homeland Security to have a plane.
Luxury jet with a bedroom in it?
Yeah, we used a 737. I've been on it once, but it is being used by other administration officials, and it is used for command and control flights for the department. The department has found that in purchasing our aircraft, that we will save the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars.
Does it have a bedroom in
it? In fact, we spent $1.42 billion on ICE deportation flights last year.
Does it have a bedroom in it?
I believe it's being refurbished and not having a bedroom in it. So it is being refurbished.
What kind of deportee justifies being flown out of the country in a luxury jet with a bedroom and accommodations like this?
There are aircraft being purchased that will be utilized for executive air travel and for deportations.
Well,
if you remember in the past, we have used jets of this size and this configuration for deportations in the past. If you remember
this configuration, by this configuration, you mean with a bedroom and luxury accommodations like this you've used for deportations. Is that true?
Sir, we have 737s that are being purchased by the department to replace contracts that we have on ICE deportations. That's what they're going to be used for. And in fact, the Coast Guard is the only entity within the Department of Homeland Security that has jets at this point in time. They had two G5s that were 20 to 25 years old that are being replaced so that they can continue to serve our Coast Guard and our military for years to come.
About these aircraft. They've been reported as saying, although they don't want to say publicly this, but individuals described as senior administration officials have described these airplane purchases as the world's worst deal and an abuse of federal funds. Can you tell me what the Republicans on this committee who voted for what I call the billionaires bill that gave you the money to buy these jets knew about your plans to acquire luxury jets when they voted for that money?
The dollars for these airplanes was appropriated by Congress. In fact, it's mandated from Congress and rules that you've given us that we need to have a long-range command and control aircraft that will seat up to 17 people in the Department of Homeland Security for national security purposes. We are complying with the law. Those planes are being refurbished and will be utilized
we'll
for that,
see.
and they'll be
Two
utilized
quick questions
by
in my
members of
last
the
minute, if you
administration
don't
and
mind.
other components.
First,
They will also cut our costs, sir,
First, in my last
by
minute,
almost
if you don't mind,
40%. We are saving the
you-
taxpayer 40% by
Mr. White
purchasing our
House.
own aircraft
May I
and
have a
operating
minute?
them rather than being susceptible to the contracts that they have today.
With the fact that you have spent $220 million running television advertisements that feature you prominently.
Sir, the president tasked me with getting the message out to the country and to other countries where we were seeing the invasion come from, with putting commercials out that told them that if they were in this country illegally, that they needed to leave, or we would detain them and remove them, and they'd not get the chance to come back to America the right way. That has been extremely effective.
Ask you to run these advertisements, is that right?
We had that conversation, yes, before I was
Right, Trish?
put in this position and
Mr. White
sworn
House?
in and confirmed, and since then as well.
Okay. Did you bid out those service contracts?
Yes, they did. They went out to a competitive bid, and career officials at the department chose who would do those advertising commercials.
And the people that you ended up picking were people who had formerly done your political work back in South Dakota, is that right?
No, that's not correct, sir.
I think it is.
No, it's not, sir. The individuals who, I believe the careers who they chose were two different media firms. There's been conversation about their subcontractors, but we have no legal authority to look into subcontractors on work like that.
We're going to jump over here. It says here that Senator Padilla goes nuclear on Secretary Noem. Let's check this one out.
Swiftly to address the crisis and with great success. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem. I'm Senator Alex Padilla, the senior senator for the state of California. Last June, you were in Los Angeles when you publicly declared that the mission of DHS in Los Angeles was to liberate the people, not just of Los Angeles, but the state of California from its duly elected leaders. The National Guard that was federalized and deployed into Los Angeles to assist DHS in this mission, that whole deployment was deemed unlawful, as I'm sure you are aware. Thankfully, those Guards members and the Marines who were also deployed to assist DHS in Los Angeles have also returned home and to their primary missions. Meanwhile, ICE and CBP are still conducting operations. My first question, the first of several yes or no questions, do you declare mission accomplished?
Senator Padilla, our mission is not accomplished until we get every single illegal criminal out of this country and protect American citizens, until we protect all of our children and these families behind me don't ever have to go through what they had to go through.
I'm trying to ask a question here. Thank you. Trump advisor Steve Bannon, among others close to President Trump, has called for ICE agents to, quote, surround the polls, unquote. However, your acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, has said, quote, there's no reason for us to deploy to a polling facility, unquote. And just last week, your Deputy Assistant Secretary for Election Integrity, Heather Honey, told a bipartisan group of state election officers on a call that ICE would not be present at polling places. I know this question came up earlier, but I have two specifics. One, which is it? Do you, Secretary Noem, agree with Steve Bannon, or your acting ICE director and your Deputy Assistant Secretary?
There are no plans to have ICE officers at polling locations. I'm not certain, Senator, if you're indicating that your party's planning on facilitating illegal aliens voting in our elections.
So I respect that you're saying there's no current plans, but obviously plans can change. No plans is the right answer, but not definitive enough. Sending ICE agents to the polls to intimidate voters is illegal.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you explicitly, if President Trump or Stephen Miller directed you to do it anyway, with or without a bogus national emergency declaration, would you say no?
Sir, there is no plans to send ICE officers
Would
to
you say
polling
no?
locations, and
Would you
we're
say
not
no,
planning on
yes or
doing
no?
that. Are you planning on sending illegal aliens to vote?
No,
Is that
that's
what
already
you're planning
illegal
to do?
and extremely,
Yes,
extremely rare.
but people have done it
Now,
in the
it's
past,
amazing,
and
Mr.
that's
Chairman,
what-
that we even
but we are
have
not
to
going-
ask these questions, because just a couple of weeks ago, Secretary Noem, when you visited Arizona, claimed that DHS has authority over certain aspects of elections. So enlighten me here. What statutory authority are you referring to?
The Department of Homeland Security has mitigation responsibility over critical infrastructure, and our election system is defined by statute as critical infrastructure. Therefore, it's under our department to put forward and point out vulnerabilities that may be
I'm very
in our
familiar
election
with the
systems, and then
specific role
recommend
for
mitigation.
CISA in elections as a former Secretary of State. Third area that I wanted to ask
I know that
you,
states
now,
run
the
elections.
nation
We just
has
point out
watched
vulnerabilities that
the
may
violent
exist
manner.
and,
Mr. Chairman,
and offer
can I ask a question
mitigation.
here?
Okay.
So the nation has watched the violent manner in which many immigrants and citizens alike have been taken into custody by your officers and your agents. In addition to that, 32 people died while in ICE custody last year, and at least 8 more have died in the first 7 weeks of this year. The numbers are a big increase from prior years. Secretary Noem, yes or no, do you care enough about the human rights of the men, women, and children in your custody to improve the conditions as required by the courts?
Yes, absolutely. We adhere to our federal detention standards, which are higher than virtually all state and local detention standards. We provide medical care to all of our detainees, 3 nutritious meals a day. We take care of them. We keep families together.
I appreciate the
we
response,
continue to do
but I
that.
have
You
to
talk
tell you
about
that I
when we have
believe my
unfortunate
own eyes.
situations where
And
individuals
I
have
believe
passed
my
away.
own eyes when I saw firsthand the poor conditions in which people were treated when I visited the detention center in California City. Now, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter into the record reports from California-based and national non-governmental organizations, as well as the California Attorney General's office, about the deplorable conditions at the California City detention facility, and a recent court order requiring DHS to address these conditions, if I may, without. Thank you very much. Now, maintaining basic standards should not require court orders. The deplorable conditions at facilities across the country are the result of Secretary Noem's failed leadership. Now, since the beginning of the administration, federal judges have found DHS not in compliance with judicial directives on a number of immigration matters. The administration has lost in court on immigration cases more than 4,500 times since October.
I want to jump to this other senator here. That was a little echoey or something. This is Tom Tillis. All right, Senator Tom Tillis. Right here.
A lot of my Republican colleagues talked about the disaster that Biden and Mayorkas, your predecessor, created. It was absurd. You heard the things from Senator Brett, people that came over here who themselves were traumatized by the very people who then come to this country and traumatize American citizens. You heard Senator Schmidt saying the same thing. A lot of us are very frustrated with the disaster that President Biden left behind and a failed DHS. It's why I'm angry, and it's why I've been critical of you, Secretary Noem, because we're missing an opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons President Trump won a year and a half ago is because people were sick and tired of a Democratic administration's open border policy and allowing millions of people to come to this country, 1.7 million called gotaways. We don't even know where they are, but we know when you pay a premium to a cartel to get them into this country, they're bad people. Now, why have I been critical of Secretary Noem? because I don't think we're focusing on, we have limited resources. ICE can't be everywhere at once. There's very few people in Capitol Hill that support law enforcement more than me, including the sworn ICE officers. In fact,
If it's brown,
I've just
get
been
down,
told,
6 feet.
fortunately, in about a week and a half, we're going to get a plaque on the wall over the Capitol, thanking the Capitol police officers and all the agencies that responded on January 6th. All those thugs have actually been pardoned, and yet we haven't thanked the Capitol police officers for their work here. So when I say I'm unapologetically pro-law enforcement, you can count in every single sworn officer in Homeland Security. So why am I disappointed with Secretary Noem? Because we're not going after enough people who did this damage at the expense of running numbers that Stephen Miller wants out of the White House. We just want numbers.
Whoa.
We want 1,000 a day, 6,000 a day, 9,000 a day, because numbers matter, right? No, they don't matter. Quality matters, not quantity, quality. And what we've seen is a disaster. Under your leadership, Ms. Noem, a disaster. What we've seen is innocent people getting detained that turn out are American citizens. I could talk about the culture that's been created here with Stephen Miller aiding and abetting. I heard first reports that he was the one that said it was a domestic terrorist situation where 2 people lost their lives in Minneapolis. I've heard that report. Maybe you can refute it. I don't know that we'll have time for you to respond because I'm giving you a performance evaluation here. I'm not looking for a response. And I'm saying, Ms. Noem, that time after time after time I've been disappointed. But before I get back to looking at the vicious people that did this damage to these families, I want to talk a minute about FEMA. You have a policy right now that anything over...
Thank you for the super chat. Tillis is a retiring North Carolina senator. Yes, you heard that right, retiring. It happens about every 70 years. Thank you so much for the super chat.
$100,000 has to go through your desk for approval. I asked my staff, because I'm a management consultant, I don't try to do cheap shots in here, but the facts do not lie. This is your administration for FEMA response. This is President Trump's first administration. Which one would you like to have? If you're a state that has a $60 billion disaster, your biggest disaster in South Dakota that I can tell that when you were an elected official was about $500 million. So 1/100th of this single storm where thousands of people are hurting in North Carolina and you're just barely catching up. This is what competent FEMA leadership looks like. This is what incompetent FEMA leadership looks like. And people are hurting in Western North Carolina from the most significant storm they've ever experienced. This is what we need more of. I'm convinced you can't do it. If you're requesting a review of $100,000 and up, then it begs the question, why? Why would you be involved in that? Why would that be a policy? And in a minute, I'll ask about some people that are involved, some special government employees. Why are they involved in it? Thank you.
Senator,
no,
that $100,000 only had to do.
And I will hold the clock until I finish. Okay. The bottom line is I've done the analysis. And you can say whatever you want to. I've worked with the Democrat governor. I've worked with the Republican governor. I've worked with fiscal research. We have people contacting my office now to get the information to better understand the failure of this department. You failed at FEMA. And in fact, if I get to it, actually, why don't I cover this right now? The Homeland Security Act of 2002 expressly prohibits the Secretary of Homeland Security from restricting or diverting FEMA resources from the agency's mission. Based on your disaster response, the chart that I just showed you, I have reason to believe that you're violating the law, either knowingly or unknowingly. So I'll be asking and getting a submission to the record, submitting a question for the record, what the total amount of FEMA reimbursements are currently being held by DHS, awaiting for final approval. Held by DHS, awaiting for final approval for an agency that you should not be obstructing the disbursement on. I'm going to give you time to answer to it under penalty of perjury so that we can get it right. Now, going back to Minneapolis, why can't we just say we made a mistake? I will ask you one question, if you could just give me a quick response. Who does Tom Homan work for? You or the president?
The president.
Okay. Why is that? Because I believe the president recognized that you weren't getting it done in Minneapolis, and you're putting us further away from pointing to this. We're beginning to get the American people to think that deporting people is wrong. It's the exact opposite. The way you're going about deporting them is wrong. The fact that you can't admit to a mistake, which looks like under investigation, is going to prove that Ms. Good and Mr. Petty probably should not have been shot in the face and in the back. Law enforcement needs to learn from that. You don't protect them by not looking after the facts. Not only should the FBI be investigating it, but every single law enforcement agency in that jurisdiction should be invited to it, so our law enforcement officers do not have this pall cast upon them.
Wow.
One of the reasons why ICE officers are having threats, and damn the people that threaten ICE officers, because so many of them are doing a good job, is because you've cast a pall on them by acting like we should investigate things differently. Officer-involved shootings have a formula that we should go through every time. And we're not going through that formula. As a matter of fact, in Ms. Good's case, I think that they were even saying that maybe there wasn't even a need to do it in the DOJ. I hope that that's changed. But I'm telling you, it was a civil rights review. I saw your frown. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But originally, Blanche said there wouldn't be an investigation. Folks, law enforcement, we've got to have their back. We've got to make it clear when they make a mistake, then they get corrected for it. But you don't walk away from it, and you've done it too many times. Now, Secretary, I read your book last week. And honestly, some of the parts of it impressed me, but some of it distresses me. And I'll give you a good example of one that does. The passage where you talk about killing a dog that was 14 months old. I train dogs, all right? And you are a farmer. You should know better. You should know that if you're going out to a hunting lodge and you're putting pheasants out and you're putting dogs out, you don't take a puppy out there. A 14-month-old dog is basically a teenager in dog years. You decided to kill that dog because you had not invested the appropriate time in training, and then you have the audacity to go into a book and say it's a leadership lesson about tough choices. It's in your book. We could play it if we had time. At that same lunch hour, you killed a goat. And you killed the goat because you said it was behaving badly. You are a farmer. You don't castrate a goat. They behave badly. You should have.
I mean, Kristi Noem's firing as Homeland Security chief, it's not just an H&R move. It's a live x-ray of how unstable, ruthless power can be inside any administration. And I'm going to be watching what comes out in the next 24 to 72 hours, leaks from the insiders, any statement from Noem herself, and the first signals about the new guy who is going to take this position. I want to thank everybody for coming out and joining me today. This has been a great show. We hit 30,000 subscribers. Thank you for the memberships. Thank you, everybody, for the jewels. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you, mods. I couldn't have done this without you guys. And today's a great day. We are at over 130,000 views on this live stream. Make sure you hit your notifications because this is the way we do news around here. We do it a little differently. Truth is a moving target. And I'm going to see you guys on the next one. Thank you.